Part 30 of Don't Say Schwarzenegger. Today's part is inspired by the foolery that I discovered in the last 24 hours that TikTok is removing a majority of your likes that you're doing on my videos, which are educational. I know they're traumatic and stuff, but it's educational and social issue stuff. And yes, I'm calling out, members of the Kennedy family, TMZ, Schwarzenegger, but I'm not the first to do it, so maybe don't suppress my stuff. Anyways, side note. So today I'm going to talk about an incident that happened in January of 2023. So just last year. I wasn't going to post this, and I want to do everything in chronological order of my series here on Don't Say Schwarzenegger. So talking about the corruption and racketeering and everything, but I had to move this one up about 30 or 40 parts, something like that, to today, because I wanted to remind everybody, my supporters, the people that aren't supporting me, that are watching me, there's some of those. I want to remind everybody about the power that that Maria Shriver and Arnold Schwarzenegger and their family, that they have yielded over media. It's called checkbook journalism. They use their star power and their money, and they're able to create a narrative or change the narrative that regular people can't do. It's like the ability to be an A-list movie star running for governor, and you're able to convince, I'm using that's doing heavy lifting, convince the media to sit on a story about your secret child you had with your employee who mops your floors. If that is not the biggest story any journalist, reporter, paparazzi could get and sell for millions of dollars, especially at that time, even today, if we didn't know about it, that is the hugest story. And I don't know if you guys know this, but that story was kept under wraps until the day after Arnold left his governorship for California. He was able to convince, I'm sure there was no money or promises or anything, made. I'm sure he just kindly said, could you please not run the story on my secret child that I had behind my wife's back with an employee where I abused my power and then pretended the kid wasn't mine for years? Could you just sit on that till we're done with the governorship? And they were like, yeah, because we're totally not soulless. We're the media or tabloids. Of course we'll sit on it. So that just give you an idea how much power this family has to sit on that story. And now it translates over to my stuff. Okay, so in January 2023, I posted this over on the Picture app, IG. You guys have already seen this. I posted it once or twice on TikTok, but the first time I had posted this, maybe the first time, I posted it January, as you can see, 18th, 2023. I posted it and I called everybody out. I was like, Sean Driz, Patrick Schwarzenegger, Maria Shriver, Christina Schwarzenegger. They're all in this picture. And everybody's telling me that is, I can't do my finger, and telling me that that's Catherine Schwarzenegger, but I can't tell with the smile and the hat and stuff. It might be, I don't know. But over on the far left, that's Sean Driz, and over right above my head, this is Christina, and obviously the whole family. So I had this moment in January last year where I was like, I'm mentioning it all. And so I posted this, and then I was posting stuff on my stories, talking about how this is insane that this family did a damage control volunteering at a church photo shoot just a couple of weeks after this guy, Sean Driz, was caught with the illegal white powder, a stolen loaded pew-pew, and a duffel bag of the green plants, all while on felony probation for a violent crime that was done to me. And he didn't even get arrested. Instead, he's doing photo shoots, damage control photo shoots. And I was mad. I was mad because I was going through the app and going in a little rabbit hole through all of their close friends, Christina and Sean. And all these people obviously know what happened to me and what they went through. And I don't care. You can't say you're dumb and you didn't know. Everybody knew, especially if you're running in a circle. So I'm finding these photos of T. London, Sarah, Abe, Alex, Sarah. I'm finding all of these people that are posting pictures on social media, all after they were convicted, but running away, still pulling stuff. Everybody knows this is happening to us, but these people are openly supporting them, and I was angry. So I was like, I'm going to show the tags. If you're proud enough to post it on social media, then you better be ready for the repercussions. And then I posted this one. You guys have seen it, and that's Sean Driz and Christina Schwarzenegger, as you can see with the arrows, and they're at Chris Pratt's birthday party, a private birthday party. And Chris Pratt knows everything that's going on because he's not an idiot either. Obviously, Catherine is there and stuff, and they're all supporting Sean and making sure he has a wonderful, safe place to go and telling him it's all right. So I even I posted this on my story on IG because I saw that Katherine Schwarzenegger, I got the screenshots. She was watching all my stories like during this is January 18th where I'm just rolling out the receipts of all of them supporting a violent, terrible person. So I'm posting stuff like this. I'm posting pictures of their friends that are tagging themselves in pictures with Sean and my attackers. Cut to 3 days after I posted receipts showing Christina and her buddies lovingly like taking care of Sean Driz. 3 days later, her account on IG with over 100,000 followers was suddenly deleted. She didn't block me. She deleted the entire thing. I'm guessing it's probably because friends of hers were like, yo, we are being called out. We don't need people to know like our business. I was also calling out their like, I was like, oh, you work for this realtor company? Let me tag them too. Like everybody's got to know if you're proud of it, be extra proud of it. So she deletes Christina Aurelia Schwarzenegger, deletes her entire IG. Still not addressing the issue of her support paying for my attacker's luxury lifestyle, him living in the house, the multi-million-dollar house that Christina lives in Brentwood, which, by the way, I called the city about a week ago, and I found out exactly who owns that house that she just put up for sale after I began my TikToks. But that house that Sean's been living in, luxury house, it has a massage room, all this stuff, I think it's up for like $3 or $4 million or something. But the actual owner of the house is the Aurelia Trust Fund, as in Christina Aurelia Trust Fund, as in a trust fund that was provided by her parents, Maria Shriver and Arnold Schwarzenegger. So if you want receipts that, they weren't there that night, but they're supporting the lifestyle, paying for the luxury home. Like literally, I was almost homeless just a couple of months ago. I was living on ramen for the last year, just trying to get by, deal with my PTSD, not having doctors and stuff. And Maria and Arnold, who provided the Aurelia Trust Fund, which owns that house that he lives in, there's just one of many receipts. Okay, so I have secondhand embarrassment from showing you this part. So this is dated January 20th, 2023, 48 hours after I laid out all the receipts on IG, proving her and all her little friends were openly supporting and partying with Sean Driz, one of the men in my court case who owes me millions of dollars. So she immediately deletes an IG with 140,000 followers while she's just starting her promotional tour to promote her new Netflix documentary that pretty much her mom's face is on it and her last name and stuff. And it's like Christina. But so I was like, there's no way she's just going to delete her entire IG when she's in the beginning promoting all this stuff. So I just looked up missing IG and her name on the internet. And this was the article that popped up. I'm going to read you the headline. I'm sure you've read it already, but I'm going to read it to you. And if you've ever seen an article, like tell me your parents wrote an article without telling me your parents wrote an article. It's called Schwarzenegger's Daughter Christina? They were all smiles at his climate event. She's beautiful. Like, I'm not saying she's not beautiful, but it's just so weird and random to have, she's beautiful. Like, it's about climate. So then, wait for it. The whole article is just about, like, Christina's had so many accomplishments. We're so very proud of our daughter. I mean, this girl that's not our daughter, this celebrity that we're totally writing an article about out of the blue for no reason. And if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you will see Christina appreciates her privacy, and she deleted her IG profile, which had around 100,000 followers. Oh, and if you didn't think that Christina 100% relies on her last name to take control of the narrative and change the narrative and not take accountability for anything, just look at her over on the Bird app. She's like, nope, don't even care what my first name is. I am C. Schwarzenegger. Don't pay attention to anything else. Just know I am related to this person. You can call me Chad. You can call me Chase. It doesn't matter. Just know that that's my last name. Not embarrassing at all. Okay, well, I rest my case, Your Honor. That's just the tip of the iceberg. This wasn't even scandalous stuff. This was embarrassing stuff to talk about how they wield their power to make sure that people like me don't have a voice, to make sure all the other people that they leave in their wake in the destruction don't have a voice. And then they can put out this stuff like, look at us, we care about climate. Like, hey, Alzheimer's is bad. Look how this is how to make your muscles bigger. Like, none of us care. You're all saying things we all know about. Like, nobody cares. We want to hear the truth. So I hope that you guys keep liking my posts, even though they're going to be removed. I don't know. I just know that you're seeing them, and I know that the right people are seeing them too. So I'm just going to keep going, and I'm going to figure something out. I need to figure out something. I've also got my stuff. Look at the top of my page. I can't even say the word for all the other apps, YT, whatever you call it, but it's there. I'm going to have backups just in case this gets. Welcome to part 31. Okay, so I'm going to jump right in it. This part is going to be about Blaze Pizza and the disgusting way that corporate works and doesn't take care of its employees. And I'm going to talk about another incident with the Drizzes, and I'm going to give you a trigger warning, CSA, okay? So, trigger warning, okay, so my assault was 2015, okay? At the time of the assault and when they got arrested and everything, they had already been going through something, another thing about violating a woman's boundaries, except this time she was underage. It was a girl's boundaries they violated and were found guilty of. Okay, so 2012, let's back way up. 2012 is when Rick and Elise Wetzel, they own that huge corporation, Wetzel's Pretzels. I think they also own Panda Express, I'm not sure. But they founded Blaze Pizza, and it's a Southern California-based fast pizza chain. And it's so big, it expanded so crazy, so fast, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. I think it's international now. That a food industry research firm called Technomic, they called it the fastest growing restaurant chain in the USA. So huge, huge numbers. The main investors, they had angel investors and main investors when they first opened their first one in Southern California. And those investors were LeBron James. I'm not saying he's doing anything wrong. He should be made well aware of what the corporation that has his name on it, how it treats its customers, its underage employees, and how it treats clearly violent dangers to society, and how they coddle them and really don't. There's a lot of lines that are being crossed by Blaze Pizza. So, main investors, LeBron James, Maria Shriver, Patrick Schwarzenegger, and then, of course, the three Drizzes, Maurice, Alberto, and Sean Drizz, three of the men named in my lawsuit that were all convicted. So, my assault's 2015. Let's back up to 2012. 2013. 2013 is when the young girl that was 16 years old, and you can Google this. There's like several articles online about this. You can just, So this girl's 16 years old. She applies for a job at the Torrance Blaze Pizza, which is owned by the Drizzes, and because she lives like less than a 5-minute drive from there. So she applies for a job. She gets it, and then she works her way up to a manager within 2 years of working there. But during that time, and I quote, she complained to corporate. She complained to the Drizzes about what they were doing to her body, to her everything, both in private and in front of customers. She complained to them because she, like, what else was supposed to do? And then she went and complained to corporate. And she said that there were schmexually, TikTok word, sorry, schmexually demeaning and explicit comments, gestures, touching, unwanted massages, kissing, touching of the buttocks, all from the twins while she's working, and she's underage. She's not even 18 yet. Corporate responds by saying, and by the way, this is all happening at the same time of the corporate response and stuff and all this, and her beginning of her civil lawsuit. This is all happening during the very beginning of my lawsuit and their arrests and their convictions and their sentencing. This is all happening at the same time. Corporate told her, if you don't like it, you can resign, get another job, or we can move you to another location 30 miles away. And 30 miles away in Los Angeles is that's like a different hemisphere. It's crazy hour drives if you drive the wrong time of day. It's insane. So they gave her those options, and obviously she quit and she went and got some attorneys. Good for her. She ended up taking him to court. She got dragged through court with meaningless mediations, with just all this. They forced her to do a psychiatric evaluation, just like the Drizzes forced me and my brother to do psychiatric evaluations, not once, but twice, 8 hours each time. And they used the same doctor for my case that they did for hers, even though they were years apart, the trials and all that stuff, because they're using the same team of people and fixers and all that. And I'm going to get into this guy. He's so, anyways. So she ends up winning, and the charge is schmexual battery of an underage girl. That's the charge. A jury found them guilty and awarded her past, future, and economic losses plus punitive damages, just like my trial. She was awarded, but I don't think she was paid, and can find out, but she was awarded about $500,000. Okay? This is right before mine. And they awarded us, we're now at like 90 million is what we're owed by this group of men. So this is how terrible they are. This has nothing to do with my case, but it has everything to do with my case. But now I want to talk about Blaze Pizza and how terrible they are. So these men, they'd already had this case on the table about this underage girl coming to them for help and being turned away from being kissed and touched and all this stuff. And corporate's like, well, we like them. You can get out of here, or you can just go work at another one far away that's inconvenient you for driving. Then all my stuff happened. So let's move ahead a little bit, about a year after the arrests in my case. So we're in March 2016. The Drizzes are found guilty. 11 counts. They're convicted felons now. 11 counts of GBI felonies. They are guilty. Blaze Pizza didn't fire them then. They didn't fire them after the underage girl thing happened. They didn't fire them after they got arrested and saw everybody knew about my injuries and all of our injuries. They didn't fire them then. They didn't fire them a year later in March 2016 when they were convicted. Then 6 months after that, September 2016, they were sentenced. They didn't fire them then because, and I have the transcripts, their attorney said, Your Honor, Alberto and Moriz jointly own a business. That would be Blaze Pizza. They jointly own a business. And our hope was to stagger their jail time. They plan on doing two weekends a month, maybe within a year. Can you imagine being this terrible of a human being and criminal, and your attorney has the audacity to tell the judge what you're planning on doing with the jail time, when and how you can do it, so it doesn't inconvenience your work and inconvenience running 11 Blaze Pizza joints? So, and of course, obviously, the judge was like, that's totally fine, no follow-up questions. So all this happens. Let me just post this real quick. So at the end of the year in 2016, like a year and a half-ish after my assaults, the night before I posted my impact statement, which I think is in part 13 of my series, the night before was the first time I posted publicly on social media about what happened to me. And I posted photos of my face. I posted the experience of all the craziness. And everybody ran over to like Facebook and Instagram and started leaving all these messages on Blaze Pizza's place. Like, you support violent men. Like, you support, like, we're boycotting you, blah, blah, blah. And Blaze Pizza went and put this like copy and paste response to, they had like 2 or 3 responses, but they were all like this. We are appalled by this violent behavior and will not tolerate it. We have removed Mr. Driz and family from store operations. In fact, there was a quote that I found from a news article that covered this. And it says, Blaze Pizza respond by saying, we are appalled by and do not condone the violent behavior of the Driz family. This is on a Facebook page. Upon learning about this, that's the first lie. Upon learning about this, we immediately removed Mr. Daniel Driz and his family, who are franchise partners in a very small number of LA restaurants. It's 11. And Sean Driz told us 2 years ago at the civil trial that they were on course to own 24 until we messed it up. So what that shows is that in December of 2016 is when Blaze Pizza said that they publicly removed them from operations, months after the sentencing, months and months and months after the convictions, and year and months and months and months after the arrests, and much, much longer after this girl won for criminal schmexual battery of an underage girl. All of this has happened, and Blaze Pizza is falling all over themselves to make sure these men can still be around clients and employees and stuff, and underage people inside of their restaurants. They don't care. They don't care about you or me. And that's all the proof. I also have heard, because I know people that work at Blaze Pizza, and I know people that have worked and still stay in touch with current employees of Blaze Pizza that were part of the 11 locations the Drizzes owned. And I have heard very recently that one of the people working there was asked to go in and do, what's the word? Like, outside of working hours, like, hey, can you go open the store up and do something, whatever? Because Alberto Driz asked us to tell you to, because he has to get in there to do something, blah, 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 blah. Like, because he's still calling shots. So now, but he divested, right? Well, here's the thing. They sold 11 locations worth about $11 to $15 million altogether. They sold all 11 for a total of $100,000 to their business partner, Peter Corral. So I'm going to get into that soon, but so there's your little thing. CSA, Blaze Pizza is terrible, and yes, let's boycott. Let's figure out a hashtag. Thank you guys so much. Okay, so quick update about me getting followed and surveilled a couple days ago. So everybody here knows I have PTSD. I get bouts of agoraphobia, panic attacks and stuff, so I don't leave the house like a lot. And I had to leave the house a few days ago, something. And I got in the car, and it was for about an hour, a little over an hour drive that I was going in the Uber. So I get in the back of the car, I say hello to the driver, put my headphones in, and I just have my head down, like, on my phone for the entirety of the ride. When we're about 5-10 minutes away from where he was dropping me off, I saw him in his rearview mirror, like, signaling, take out your headphones. So I take him out, and he goes, do you have a stalker? And I was like, sort of, why? And he goes, you see that like brand new Mercedes like behind us to the left with the blacked out windows, not tinted. He had like full blacked out, like illegally blacked out windshield, everything, windows. He goes, that car, when I picked you up an hour from here, he's like, when I picked you up, it pulled out right behind us, like boop, like immediately pulled out. And he said it stayed 2 car lengths behind us, like 2 cars for the entire hour drive. That's like going through a whole different part of like outside of Los Angeles, going into Los Angeles. On the highway, off the highway, there's crazy traffic, and we're going down like, tiny streets and stuff. And he's like, that car has been behind us the entire time. It's following us. So I'm like, okay. So the car pulls up beside us. He slows down because I was like, can you do it so I can see the license plate on the back? And he's like, got it. So he slows the car down, and the car was like forced to drive up beside us. I didn't get a picture of it, but I got the license plate. It was like a really new Mercedes with blacked out windows. So the second I did that, the car pulls up and then it takes off. So that was crazy. And the driver and I had a little bit more of a talk, and I was like, I can't believe, thank you so much for pointing that out. Cause geez, I've been head down, whatever. So he drops me off to the location that I'm going to. So I go to the location I'm going to, and the person I'm seeing there, I was like, how you been, whatever. And they were like, oh, my car got broken into. And this is somebody who I've been going to their house a few times over the last few weeks. And they go, my car got broken into this morning. And I was like, immediately, like, I'm like, oh no, because I haven't gone over all of this stuff with you guys yet. But part of the agoraphobia and avoiding people and places and relationships and all that is because it seemed to be this pattern over these last several years where anytime I would start hanging out with somebody, like a friend new, or I start trying to work somewhere, whoever was employing me or whoever was hanging out with me would have, suddenly they'd get a flat tire every single week. Like I'm talking 2, 3, 4 flat tires, or their car would be broken into, yet nothing would be stolen. Just all the doors would be open, and everything in the front of the car would be moved to the back, and everything in the back of the car would be moved to the front. In fact, one time there was a vintage Chanel coat in one of them, and the Chanel coat was moved on top. As in, don't get this twisted, this isn't a random robbery. We didn't want to steal your stuff. We just want to let you know we know where you live. It's kind of that vibe. And again, I could be wrong. I just want to be really transparent with you guys at the risk of sounding paranoid or anything. I just want to tell you about all this stuff. And by the way, I have a lot of photos and everything for like 95% of the stuff I'm talking about. But so this person tells me about the car thing, and, that's all I'll tell you about that. So about an hour in, I was like, okay, I'm going to step out front. And I grab my phone and I go out front to the street. When I stepped out front, first thing, within 10 seconds, I can hear this noise, because now I can hear it always, like, and it's like something I've had to become very used to the last several years, again, with a lot of photo and video evidence, but I hear a drone, like 30 feet above my head. So I look up, and of course, there it is. There's a drone. There's the drone. Yeah. This happens all the time, these two, to me. Haven't seen one of those in a while. So, yeah, that was it. A stranger pointed out, hey, you're being followed for like an hour by that car with blacked out windows, and a drone was and I was walking up the hill where I was too, and the drone was like going above me, and the second I whipped out my phone, that's when you can see it. It goes behind the building and it disappeared. So, not too surprising, because this is like always what I know in the back of my mind. If the people I'm talking about aren't fighting back publicly with like with accusations saying I'm lying, or a response saying, no, this is what happened, like here's my side of the story. Since none of that's happened, Whenever it gets quiet like that, I always know something's happening in the background and I have to like brace myself and be on the lookout. And what do you know, like multiple things happened the other day. So I'm okay. I'm fine. I'm in a safe place now. I'm with a very, very close couple of friends, and my cortisol levels, they are making sure they're feeding me, feeding me, taking care of me. And we're just going to try to relax this weekend. I'm going to try to do part 31 today, and then I'm going to take a couple days off. But thank you so much, everybody, for all your patience and your understanding. Thank you so much for giving me a safe place to talk about all this. I'm sure it's not easy on you guys either. Anyways, love you. Part 32 of Don't Say Schwarzenegger. It's nice to be back after my 2-week break. So thank you, everybody, for being so patient. So this part today, I'm going to just be talking about another very easily Googleable story showing the pattern of Arnold Schwarzenegger abusing his power, using cronyism, all that stuff to get ahead of people who are following the rules. Just like, with my story, just like with the intentional unaliving of Luis Santos and taking the justice away from his parents, Fred and Kathy Santos. So this actually predates them. This predates me. And I'm going to talk about the 1980 Mr. Olympia competition. It's the international bodybuilding competition, for those who aren't aware of what that is. This competition, which Arnold won first place, was dubbed one of the most controversial bodybuilding contests in the history of the sport. So we're going to talk about Arnold utilizing gray areas and loopholes and stuff to get ahead for this one. And my main source for this, even though there's tons and tons of articles covering this, my main source is Iron Man magazine from December of 2011, written by John Hansen. So in 1980, this is kind of around the time that Arnold was becoming a movie star. People knew who he was. He was just the big muscled out guy from Austria, I think he is. But he was still competing in international bodybuilding competitions. For the 1980 competition, Arnold told everybody that he wasn't competing in it, even though he had competed in it before and everything, but he was kind of now being busy with the movie stuff. So he was like, no, I'm not competing. He told his friends, like his best friends and stuff that were competing. He's like, no, I'm not competing, while they were preparing, because you need like at least a year, if you're in that world, to compete at that level. You can't just decide 3 months early, like, you know what, I think I'm going to go and do the Mr. Olympia. Like, it doesn't work like that. You need so much preparation put into your body. This is all stuff I've learned recently. I didn't just know that. Anyways, so his friend had actually asked him, like, right before the competition, maybe a month or two before, he was like, so are you going to be in this competition this year? And he's quoted as saying, he's saying, no, I'm not. And the friend said, and you don't really look great. Like, you look small for this competition type of people. He's obviously larger than the average bear, but like, and his response was just the usual steroids. So, I mean, obviously none of us are surprised by that comment, but just to give you an insight. So anyways, so now we're in Sydney, Australia in 1980 for the Mr. Olympia, and it's being held at the Sydney Opera House. And at the time, Arnold was already dating Maria Shriver, who we all know who she is. So I'm not going to go through all of the little details of the poses that Arnold and the other competitors did and why they were good, why they weren't, because it's a very long, I'm not going to go into all that. But long story short is they kind of judge you on how your muscles look when you're standing. They judge you on how your muscles look when you're flexing. They judge you on movement and how they look and all that stuff. And Arnold just wasn't as big and wasn't as cut and lean as the other competitors. And it was just clear from not only the competitors, it was clear from the judges, it was clear from the audience, it was clear from the world. I didn't know I was born after this, so I didn't know anything about this until I went into a rabbit hole Googling Arnold and scandal. Don't do that. Do it. But so at the end of the competition, after Arnold won first place, these are the reactions from everybody in that world. One bodybuilder yelled, BS, the real, whenever, I'm just giving the TikTok version. Another threw his trophy against the wall backstage. The runner-up yelled twice, I can't believe it. Many of the audience were booing Arnold's win. Another competitor never competed again because he said the 1980 Mr. Olympia was politics and conspiracy. Little did he know that this was just the beginning. And many competitors also vowed to boycott Mr. Olympia competition 1981, the following year, because of how scandalous this was, and that it really seemed to everybody that he had just bought or bribed his way to first place. So a lot of people were upset. In fact, CBS television spent a ton of money sending like journalists, writers, whatever, to Sydney to cover this whole thing after the controversial decision, because they were going to do like an expose on it, because this is crazy. And then all of a sudden, CBS decided not to air it at all, even though they spent a ton of money on it, which makes me think, and I haven't had time to do this, but it makes me wonder, what happened in 1980 and 1981 for CBS to suddenly sit on the story, almost like all of the tabloids did when they suddenly sat on the story of the secret baby that Arnold had with his employee while he was married, and they sat on that story until the day after he left his governorship of California. So I don't know if anybody wants to look up if Maria or Arnold suddenly were working for CBS or something like that during that time. That'd be interesting. In fact, one last thing too is one of the judges that was supposed to be on the judging panel, he pulled out before the competition because of a conflict of interest. Like he was friends with somebody or had business or somebody, obviously, like in the competition. So that's not fair. What I just said right now is something Arnold has never and will never understand: conflict of interest. He's like, ooh, conflict, yes. So this judge that pulled out, he said afterwards that he would have placed Arnold in 5th place had he been on the panel. And it was very strange that all of these judges, who most of them, it was well known that they were suddenly very good friends with Arnold. So this is one of my shortest parts of the series. I'm just going to cover that for this thing. But I just wanted to show this pattern of alleged cheating and wiping out stories left and right. I mean, we all know Arnold, everything that was in the news in the last month with Trump being in court, and there was a big week where David Pecker, who is the CEO of AMI, I think it is, American Media, and they do like National Enquirer, all that stuff. So there was a lot of things in the news because of the Trump, like if you just put like David Pecker and Arnold, every single headline a few weeks ago was Arnold, because it's known and proven that Arnold has had stories squashed, paid to have, victims and survivors silenced. So this was just the beginning, 1980, and look at us, 44 years later, and still doing the same thing. Thank you guys again so much for letting me have the space the last couple weeks to catch my breath. I didn't realize how much I needed it until I needed it. So thank you. I feel so much better now, and I think I might do another part or two today. So I'm going to try to make up for a little bit of the time lost. But thank you so much. You've been absolutely incredible and supportive and patient. Thank you. Part 33 of Don't Say Schwarzenegger. So this entire part, I'm going to be talking about possibly the closest person who's a family member to the 3 Drizzes, whose name has been coming up over and over and over in the last 3 years or so, especially during the beginning of our civil trial in 2021. And her name has come up many times when I've been researching where all their mansions and millions of dollars in cash and assets and all that disappeared to after the lawsuits began. Her name is like at the top of the pile. And it's kind of sad that she allowed her name and her identity to be used by Alberto and all of them to cover for them, to help hide assets from victims. But here we are. So now I'm going to be mentioning her name quite a bit. I'm going to be mentioning her college. I'm going to be mentioning her sorority. And I'm going to be mentioning the people that employ her to, you'll see when you find out what she does for a living and for internships. It's going to be like, huh. So this is 27-year-old Annabella Nicole Drizz, daughter of Alberto. She went to the University of Wisconsin in Madison, and she studied journalism and psychology, which is very interesting because I'm not a journalist. I've been modeling for 20 years. This isn't my job. I'm not a private investigator. I'm not an attorney. I'm none of that. Yet somehow I've been able to read through the lines and do the most basic bits of due diligence to find out that there's a lot of illegal things happening here. Racketeering, fraudulent transfers of assets, millions in money after the lawsuits began. And her name keeps coming up in all the documents. Isn't that wild? I'm sure she's innocent. So after my lawsuit began, which is about 2015, after my attempted unaliving, the Drizzes were already, the twins, not Sean, but the twins were already being sued by the girl that I mentioned in a previous part who sued them, and she won for schmexual battery of an underage girl because they were doing things to her that were disgusting while she worked for them, and Blaze Pizza tried to protect them. So they were already dealing with a lawsuit. So then they have all these new lawsuits in 2015. And I found out both from the girl, I spoke to her from the girl and looking up documentation, that immediately after she filed lawsuit, they started moving all of their assets around, started trying to put their houses here and there, whatever. So it was really, really interesting. What I discovered, there she is again. I just want you guys to get used to what she looks like. And those are her really good friends. So hi, Maggie Fish and Acappuccini, whatever. So anyways, there was a trust fund that was created after the lawsuits had began, both for the underage girl and for the attempted unalivings. And the name of the trust fund that was created is called the Annabella Nicole Trust, named after you know who. So I had to literally call several friends of mine to try to suss out exactly what I wrote down, because I just copied down a bunch of documentation. Like, I'm actually going to post the documents in the post after I post this, because I still have to talk to one more person about what certain words mean, because I'm not a real estate person, and I want to get it right. But I still wanted to give you guys, the goss. So I found out Annabella Nicole Trust, which was created in 2016, so way after the lawsuits of me and her and the young girl. I found out that there were multiple people, like cousins, other cousins, not just her, but another whole family of cousins called the Sidermans. That would be the cousin Pop 710. His name is Sergio Siderman, and he has a law firm in Calabasas, California, which is right outside of Los Angeles. Lolo Siderman, that's a tag. That's just his, I think, Sergio's daughter. And that's Marco Siderman, the football jock guy. That's him right there. And they all he goes to Westlake, or went to Westlake. Murda Siderman. We're going to talk about Murda quite a bit, too. Murda is the wife of Sergio Siderman. And, of course, there's Maurice Driz and his son, Sean Driz, tagged in the photo by Marco. Thanks, Marco, for that. So when I found and I started reading through this Annabella Nicole Trust and discovered there was at least one luxury condo, like even for Beverly Hills, luxury condo. This is also the same condo where the Pew Pew white powder bust happened, where they all got rewarded for being caught with all of that, stolen goods, all that stuff. Anyways, so this trust was created, and from what I found in the documents, and I'm going to post this after, remember, is that Alberto Driz was the trustee. The seller on these documents was none other than Murda Siderman. There was $483,000 pushed through this trust, and then a year later, 2017, $785,000 was pushed through the trust. Then there's a lender. I'm just going to start throwing out these names because we're going to get into this after, but I want to just hit the bullet points. Eagle Capital was the lender. A man named David Troyce Jalif was a lender. With all due disrespect, I'm not going to try to pronounce his name correctly. The borrower later on the road, a year later after the first time, was again Murda Siderman, who is clearly related to, which I'll show again because I have a million screenshots of all of them being like, oh, I love my cousin, I love my uncle, oh my God, my nephew, and the best, they're literally laying it out. And then, of course, in the civil trial, Sean tried to deny that they were related, and it was also removed from the transcript. We'll get to that. Civil trials, you guys are going to lose your minds. Okay, so what I found from this Annabella Nicole Trust was that Alberto moved his luxury multi-million-dollar Beverly Hills condo into this trust fund. And it was called a revocable trust fund when it was created. Then if you'll notice when we go through the documentation, it turns into an irrevocable trust fund. So, which means it can't be changed. So it started off as, yes, you can make changes to it. Then it suddenly turned into can't make changes. And there's millions of dollars documented going through this trust in the name of Annabella Nicole. So this picture I got of Annabella and her cousin, Marco Siderman, and they were posting this from a mega yacht. Like, I'm talking mega yacht in Turks and Caicos during the first week of our 2021 civil trial. Wait till I get to the details on that. It's insanity. There's a reason why I had to take these pictures and pull them off the internet. But so Annabella Nicole Driz is the one that's sitting there with the power over this trust fund that has millions of dollars after the lawsuits and everything, that all of us victims, the underage girl, me, the other, like it's wild. And she's been traveling the world in high style, posting. I have got pictures of her just Hermes on the walls. Like, it is doing renovations of her new home, which, hey, Annabella, is that the same home that was illegally put into your trust that began as a revocable trust fund and then turned into an irrevocable trust fund like a year later? It's very shady and questionable. I really want to talk to a lot of you. I'd love to hear your comments, people that are in real estate and know about trust funds and stuff, because I have no idea about any of that stuff. I have to learn it as I go. But in her trust fund, we discovered that $176,000 was paid to Sergio Siderman. That would be Marco's dad, who owns that law firm in Calabasas. It's like an immigration law firm or something. Ooh, we're going to talk about that too. So $176K goes to Sergio for some reason. In 2018, her trust fund earned $869,000. All of this, okay. 2017, $483,000 was in there. The lender, Eagle Capital. A few months later in 2017, $785,000 goes through there. This is insanity. Oh, and there was also the condo that was put into it was sold for $1.2 million. That's one of the properties. So now you have it. I just laid out millions of dollars that they say they don't have. But you know who does have it? Annabella Nicole Driz. She has it, which is interesting because she majored in journalism and psychology at the University of Wisconsin in Madison, Wisconsin. So journalism. So you've got to be better than this at me. I'm a model. What? Do better. And I also want to mention that Annabella is part of the Delta Gamma sorority in the Omega chapter. I don't even know what that means, but I'm going to be tagging them in every single post. In fact, I'm going to go back to old posts. I'm going to be tagging them because we need answers from Annabella. And I'm working very hard on trying to get my attorneys to depose her as well, since clearly she knows a lot about where the money's gone and stuff. So I'm going to be working on that, and I'll keep you guys updated. And I'll also keep you updated on whenever we find out Christina's new deposition date is made, because that was totally normal how that happened. But thank you guys so much. I'm going to probably do another one tomorrow, another one of these. I'm feeling really good, but it's nice to be back. Got to pace myself a little bit. But I would love to hear all your comments. Anybody who knows about real estate, trust funds, and foolery. Love you guys. Part 34 of Don't Say Schwarzenegger. For this part, I'm just going to be posting 37 points of proof of statements made by Sean Driz that were not under oath, public statements. And these statements are going to prove that he's proud of being violent, he's misogynistic, he's homophobic, he's racist, and he appropriates Black culture when it suits him. Never under oath in court. Suddenly he's like, oh, my father, and stuff like that. But when he's not in court, it's a whole different story, and it's problematic. So here we go. Okay, a lot of these too, they're just going to show how crazy arrogant he is. So here's one. Never gon' see a day where I don't get the upper hand. I'm respected from California all the way down to Japan. What? Okay, it gets worse. I'm starting off small. And second one is, it ain't all about the money, but I stack it up because you never know. Okay, cool. It's probably stacked somewhere so we can pay all the victims the millions of dollars. It's like he owes himself, I think, 40-something million. But anyways, the next one is, mother effers tagging up my windows with gang signs of gangs. I don't know if I can even say that on TikTok. If I find you, I will unalive you. First proof of being excited and telling the world I am a violent person. Side note too, Sean spells his name wrong sometimes with a U, but he did admit under oath that these were his tweets. So just side note. So hashtag Blaze Manager. So he was hired by his father and his uncle, Maurice and Alberto Driz, because they are owners of 11 Blaze Pizzas. So he was immediately hired to manage all of them because he has experience. No, he doesn't. So here's the next one. Couples massage with my uncle, Alberto. No, and then a word, but I had to cover it for community guidelines, but it's a homophobic slur. Begins with H. The next one is, I need one of these, Ghost. Funny you should say that. He was driving a Rolls Royce Ghost to one of the probation violation hearings where he was supposed to be arrested for the white powder and stuff like that and the stolen pew-pew. But yeah, and then in a debtor's exam by his uncle like a few weeks ago, they actually denied ever owning or driving a Rolls Royce. So we'll get to that later down the road. And then another one about the Rolls Royce: driving the Rolls to pick up for my dad's friend. Hashtag jokes. Hashtag half O. What do you think that means? What do you think that means? We know what it means. All right. 3 tweets in one day. This is 2 years before the assaults. 3 tweets in one day. Breathalyzer's out. What a great day. Breathalyzer comes out today. Yes, a year and a half later. Big day today. He's really excited to drink. Okay, here's where he's excited about pew pews and violence. It says, bang, bang, up, Memphis. Then a word that begins with the N. With N, it's racist. Don't give a F. I had to do a lot of censoring for this. And then another one says, I will be blacked out by the end of this dinner. Blue Label. He's talking about how he even said in his deposition he only drinks Johnny Walker, like whiskey or something. This one says, Culver City in the morning and Torrance in the afternoon, then back to Culver. Oh, that's because they also own the Culver City and Torrance Blaze Pizzas, so we'll get to a post in the future about which ones to boycott. Okay, the one at the top, it begins with H, it rhymes with Mo, and it says, shut the F up. He's really nice to women. Christina, how did you land such a catch? Next one says, my uncle's new Manhattan beach house is, that beach house was slid into Anna Nicole Drizz's trust fund, I believe, and then sold for millions of dollars, just like the Beverly Hills luxury condo. Side story, doesn't matter. Next one, promotion. Female dog word, whatever. Promotion. Wow, he got promoted at a company that his father and uncle owned that sells pizza. Brilliant. Next one. Wow, almost got into a fist fight on the 405 freeway. LOL. This is the classy, humble guy that, yeah. One at the top. Sean says, the fights between my dad and uncle have to stop. He actually said in a deposition that his dad and uncle got into physical fights in front of him as a kid. So take that as you will. Next tweet is, just because they rated LeBron a 99 and Kobe a 93 on 2K, I hope the little F gets hurt. No, sorry about it. He hopes somebody gets hurt. Interesting. It's so outside of what we've learned about his character and personality. Okay, next one is skinny, a word that begins with N, but my eggplant emoji, long. So now he's using racial slurs and he's talking about his package. So amazing. Oh my God, he's definitely going to marry that girl. Okay. And then the next one says, next location, Vegas, Blaze. Oh yeah, they also own Blazes in Vegas. So we'll talk about that in the future. Don't worry. And here he is tweeting about his really close friend, Ray Nicholson's dad, Jack Nicholson. I haven't gotten to that whole part yet. We'll get there, I promise. And it says, so I can sit back like Jack Nicholson and watch N-words play the game like the Lakers. I can't. He sits late. He's courtside all the time. I have a ton of photos. Can you imagine? Like, I don't even know what to say. Like, I hope, yeah. Next tweet. No, and it's a homophobic slur. No homophobic slur. Wishing I was at the Drake concert. Ew. Third one down. Pop me a Molly, then I F her face. This is when he started dating Christina Schwarzenegger. Isn't that's sweet? That's a Kennedy family member. Awesome. And the last one says, I got B words kissing on B words. I'm just being honest. I'm a rock star for life. I'm just being honest. Stop quoting rappers. You're like this white kid from Manhattan Beach in Beverly Hills. Stop. Okay, and then the end of 2013, he just got the keys to Culver City Blaze Pizza, another one they own. Who's down for a pizza party? He's just always bragging about like the nepotism. It's cringe. Then the next one says, I never did real estate, but I put you in your place. Like, he's so aggressive and just ew, like hiding behind what, your dad's Rolls Royce. Third one down says, I smoke that S word that made R. Kelly think he could fly. And then the last one says, damn, it feels good to boss people around. Haha, hashtag manager. Yes, Blaze Pizza employees have been reaching out to me. Oh, this one might be about Christina. And it's still money over B words. Oh my God, he's such a poet. Next one. Do you think Shaun White watched the women's half pipe and thought, I did that when I was 12? Cool. All female athletes. He doesn't respect you. That's cool. That's cool. I bet I could actually beat him in basketball. I was actually recruited for D1 schools, all NCAA, whatever, coming out of high school. So just side story, whatever. I wonder what he was recruited for. Oh wait, no, he dropped out of community college in Arizona and then dropped out of Arizona State so that he could become a pizza manager. Side note, doesn't even matter. Okay, third one down Sean says, just watched a bum take a pee in a cup at Robertson Venice intersection. #wow. So just side note, there's a chance, because it's like Los Angeles, we have a lot of homeless veterans. There's a chance that that person, that human being that he's calling a bum, is a veteran with PTSD and CPTSD. There's a really good chance the person he's making fun of has those mental challenges, like a lot of us do. So it's interesting. And not all of us were lucky enough to be born into a family where Rolls Royces and managerial jobs at multi-million-dollar franchises are just dropped in our lap. Whatever. And then the last one says, that was fun. Lakers, courtside, like I said. He's been courtside for years. Okay, I think this is my last slide. Okay, so the top one says, it's my ambition. Racial slur that begins with the N, with N. The second from Sean Driz is, I ain't coming in unless I'm with my racial slur that begins with the N, the letter N. Oh, he's just exhausting. The next one, third one down, Sean Driz says, people think they're so hard talking S stuff on the freeway till you tell them to pull over. He's so proud to be aggressive and violent. This is a pattern, and for them, any of them to say that what happened that night was just like one bad night, which they've tried to say many, many times, which I haven't quoted all the other stuff yet, the depositions. Like, this is who he is. And the last one, this is while he's dating Christina Schwarzenegger. This is the last one. And it says, I'm looking for a girl that would do whatever the F I say every day. She'd be giving it up. I would lose my mind if my man ever posted public things like this. Like, that, it is so gross. But I mean, if she's not grossed out by him being a part of the group of men who crushed my skull in 2015, and then him laughing at us in court when our injuries were being described in 2021, and you know, like, why would she be worried about this? But I just wanted to point it out to you guys because you guys are amazing. All right, so that's it for today. Try not to dry heave. Bye. Welcome to part 35 of Don't Say Schwarzenegger. For this part, we're going to be covering the 2018 deposition under oath of Sean Driz. So I'm going to be pointing out a lot of perjury. I'm going to show you pictures and what the relationships is of almost every single person he names as witnesses, friends that he hung out with immediately after the attempted unalivings. Some people, however, have completely deleted all of their social media in the last couple months. So, and I also, yeah, we'll get to certain ones and I'll point it out as I go. So right off the bat, the deposition starts with Sean Driz saying, I don't have an attorney. He's representing himself because remember, they're broke and indigent. After a couple questions get asked, he says, I'd like to make a phone call. They're like, who are you calling? He's like, an attorney. And they go, what's the name? And he refused to give the name of the attorney. And he just said, it's a friend of mine. So Sean gives a quick background that he grew up in Manhattan Beach and then moved to Beverly Hills. He went to Scottsdale Community College in Arizona. And from there, he went to Arizona State, he said, and then dropped out after a semester and a half to go be an operational manager at Blaze Pizza for his dad and his uncle. Sean then mentions that his dad and his uncle were owners of 11 Blaze Pizzas at that point, you know, up until the attempted unaliving. And what he says next is really interesting because he says, I was the operational manager there from 2012 to 2016. Now that's interesting because they were arrested in early 2015 and they were sentenced and convicted in September of 2016, so like 6-ish months later. Blaze Pizza didn't fire them or publicly say they fired them until 2016, months after the convictions, which is against policy. Then Sean tells us how his father and his uncle, Maurice and Alberto Driz, owned 11 Blaze Pizzas in Southern California, Nevada, whatever, and that when they were all fired for the felony convictions, that the shares were sold off to the 51% co-owner, which we found out later was a man named Peter Corral, and I'm going to touch base. We're going to talk about that. I'm going to pop his picture up there in this thing. Don't you worry. So then we skip to, he's talking about where he's working, because it's, first of all, you have to remember, these are convicted felons with active restraining orders from a whole group of people, all of us, against them. So you're wondering, where do they work? Well, this is what he says. He says, I work at a law firm called Immigration America. You can pause this and go Google it and see if you can find any trace of a place in the LA area called Immigration America. We had a hard time finding it. I sure did. But the coincidence is that Sean has a family member, like they're cousins, uncles, but close family members, named Sergio Siderman, who does immigration law at a law firm in Sherman Oaks. And I think it's called Sergio Siderman Law Firm or something like that. And so he didn't mention all this. I found this out on my own, that it was family, but he tries to make it sound like it's just some law firm that was like, yeah, we want a violent convicted felon with, restraining orders against him. Get over here. Let's get you to work at the law firm. So they ask, what do you do at this law firm at Immigration America? And Sean says, I do their social media, marketing, and fingerprinting. Like, what? Now, I've shown this before, but I want to show it again. But that's Sergio Siderman in the orange-red shirt. His IG is Pop710. That's his son, Marco Siderman, who used to play football at Westlake. I believe that's his daughter, Lolo Siderman. And that's Murda Siderman, who we're going to talk about because her name is all over some really, really, really bad documents when it comes to transfers of all the assets after the lawsuits began. And, of course, there's Maurice Driz and his son, Sean Driz. And look at this picture. Here's Sergio Siderman. And by the way, in the civil trial in 2021, Sean tried to say that they're not family, that it was purely professional. We'll get to that. But Sergio, his boss, again, not a family member, his boss took him to Qatar. Qatar? Qatar, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that. But he took him to Qatar for the World Cup in 2022. It's a really nice boss who hires felons at his law firm and takes them to Qatar for World Cup. Wow. Oh, another thing is, when the attorneys asked Sean during the deposition, how did you get here? Because you're very broke, so if you own a car, we'll probably take it, And he says, oh, I'm just driving a loaner. It's a company car belonging to the law firm. This is like the nicest law firm ever. I'm going to apply for a job there. The next question the attorneys asked was, where do you live? And he gave an address in Brentwood, which I looked up and was like, oh, that's a Schwarzenegger property. That belongs to the Aurelia Trust that Maria and Arnold provided for Christina Schwarzenegger. So he is dating her still, and not only that, moved in. He tells the attorneys during this depo, they're like, well, how much are you paying to live there? And he says, rent-free. She covers my phone bills. She covers my utilities. She covers, like, everything. I don't pay a thing. She covers my luxurious lifestyle. So Sean was asked, well, how long have you guys been dating? And he made it very clear that they were just friends at the time of the attack. And I know that's a lie, because you can ask anybody that works around him or socializes in any of the same areas as him. Everyone's like, no. They were a serious couple, that they were boyfriend, girlfriend at the time of the attacks. And I thought that was really interesting, because it means that before the attack, they were just friends, and Christina was like, not going to date this guy. But apparently, word got out that Sean Driz helped people crush an unconscious woman's skull, almost unaliving her. And then Christina was like, maybe I do want to date him and pay all his bills. Then Sean says that at the time of the assaults, he was living with a man named Tomer Fadita. You know what the interesting thing is like, I ordered these transcripts like months, years down later, like I was just so late on everything because I didn't know about the corruption yet. He had never, and he was also there at the apartment after all the assaults happened and everything. Sean and the group of attackers went back to Sean's apartment, and Tomer was there, and then they all talked about what happened, obviously. Never subpoenaed, never had to give a police statement, Tomer. Isn't that interesting? Another thing is in the video, this deposition, Sean smirked. He couldn't help but smirking every single time Tomer's name was said. And it made me realize, wait, these guys were best friends. They lived together. They went, and he was a witness, admittedly, to other people, saying he was a witness to the aftermath after everything, the assaults. I believe that Tomer was there. And in my opinion, I think he was on that footage doing horrific stuff that never saw the light of day. Tomer Fadita. So now we're also going to get into the other witnesses and people on the security footage who were in the melee, but just were never subpoenaed or they were never charged. They were just, it was just like it never happened. And again, I didn't know any of this. None of us knew a lot of this. Most of us didn't know about this until I paid for all the transcripts and depositions and watched it myself. So this is Alex Derville. He was a very good friend. He was like family to Sean at the time. Alex was on the footage, the security footage, in the melee, not doing good things. At one point, his girlfriend is like screaming at him, like, because his body is on the ground. She's screaming at him, trying to pull him away, but he wants in there. He wants to help his friends. Guess what? He's an attorney in California now. And this guy dodged the depositions as hard as he could. We'll get to that. This guy is Gerard Moreno. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, and I don't care. But Sean Driz said that was a good friend of his, and that, yes, he was at the Nice Guy and present for this. The only reason we know about him is because I bought the depositions and saw his name years later and was like, why is this guy not in the police report? Why has this guy not been questioned? Why has he not been subpoenaed? No answer. Okay, the things I'm going to be reading to you now might make you stupider, and I apologize. So, Sean Driz is asked the question, do you do the white illegal powder? Did you do it in 2015? And his response was, not in 2015. And then he goes, who had told you? I mean, oh my God. Then here's another quote from Sean. He says, I'm not a fighter. Then he follows it up with, I haven't been in that many fights. Then he follows that up with, I've had a total of 3 fights in my entire life. Couldn't tell you why. This is William Aubrey Jolson, around the same age as Sean, in the Beverly Hills, Bel Air area, all that. He was one of the defendants who owes millions and millions and millions of dollars to us for the attempted unalivings. I haven't talked about him much yet because we didn't know his identity until about 2018-19, well after the statute of limitations. So we're going to be talking about him a lot soon. And also, this depo thing, this is going to be at least one other part to finish because it's a lot. When asked if he attends Lakers games, Sean said, no, Clippers. Okay. And I'll be continuing this on to part 36. Part 36 of Don't Say Schwarzenegger. This is a continuance of part 35, going over Sean Driz's 2018 deposition. So, in the investigation, we discovered that the illegal white powder was something that was prevalent in their group of friends. So he was asked by the attorneys in the deposition, have you ever seen William Jolson do snow? And he said, yes, he's seen William Jolson do snow, but he refused to say how many times. And then Sean said, and I quote, I've never been a snow user ever in my life, which he then followed up with, I've done snow for a small period. And then he says William Jolson is a gentleman. I'm going to prove he's not. I'm just going to leave that there for a quick second. Sean Driz then said that nobody was intoxicated at the Nice Guy. This was before they got to the Nice Guy at the birthday dinner at Ago. Super sober looking. This is Peter Corral. He's Alberto Driz's longtime best friend of like 30 years or so and his business partner. Peter Corral was also one of the main owners at Blaze Pizza. He's one of the money guys. I Googled him, and he sold 7 for All Mankind jeans for $775 million in 2007. Peter's son is Adam Corral, who also owns the Shore Bar, so he owns the Nice Guy, the Shore Bar. Adam is the substantial owner of the Nice Guy. Yet, none of their staff was able to give police reports about what happened, even though they're all in the video getting attacked, witnessing everything. The door guy even told me he stuck his arms through the ambulance doors before they closed, and he said, I got you. I got a picture of all of their cars running away. I got their license plates. Those pictures never materialized, and it was clear that they wanted to give it to the police to help from what happened that night. But Adam runs the show, and none of this ever turned up. In fact, Adam somehow got my email and emailed me, like, in those weeks after. I don't know, I had a concussion, traumatic brain injury, but I remember finding it later being like, oh my God, I responded to him. But he was like, hey, Anne, so sad what happened, if there's anything I can do. And it's like, yeah, Adam, you actually could. You could, not obstruct justice, and you could, hand over the bar tab of the Drizzes. You could do a lot of things, but you didn't, did you? Quick note too, they all claim that Peter Corral was not present at the Nice Guy that night, but that he had all of the drinks comped. So here's the thing, and this is what the manager said, who was nice enough to testify and tell the truth, that even when you're comping drinks, because a lot of celebs go in there, stuff gets comped, doesn't matter if it's, whoever, they always put it into the system, every single drink, every single bite of food, and then it's comped. But that bar tab disappeared. I wonder if it was Peter or Adam that did that. Okay, so this is Eileen Riviera in the green dress. She's very close friends with Drizzes. This picture is from that night before the attempted unalivings happened. So, according to Sean in his deposition, he said that when they all went out to the valet, where everything started, the melee, he actually wasn't present for the very beginning of it because he was walking a lady to her car. And he's such a gentleman, as we know, from part 34. Oh my God. But so he was walking a woman to her car. He comes back to the valet stand and he sees his father, Maurice Driz, berating the valet, who I found out, by the way, from my attorneys. They said we can't get a statement from the valet. He disappeared. He's nowhere to be found suddenly. And he was an old man. So I don't know what that means. It could mean a lot of things, good, bad, I don't know. So Sean says he comes back and Eileen, it was her, she had a valet ticket that she couldn't find. And apparently, according to Sean, that the valet said, how the F could you forget that? How could you lose the valet ticket? What's wrong with you? That didn't happen. So Eileen's going back and forth, can't find it. And then Maurice starts yelling at the valet. And then suddenly, all this happens and then the fight begins. By the way, Eileen never gave a police report. She's never been subpoenaed. She just slipped through the cracks of all this somehow. So at this point, TMZ starts to film. It's Robert Sirachi and Jacob Castellon. They're standing there, the two TMZ paparazzis, which, by the way, I couldn't find one picture of either of them. They have cleaned the internet. It's really interesting. But so they're standing there and one of them picks up his camera, and these aren't celebrities, but he picked up his camera because there's a fight going on. They're like, they end up saying to Maurice, lay off the valet guy. Jesus, he didn't do anything. Just lay off of him. If she doesn't have a ticket, he can't give her keys to a car. And at this point, this is when stuff gets out of hand. And according to Sean, his uncle Alberto said to Sean, get him out of here, about the TMZ guy. Sean says TMZ says, this is public property. What the F are you going to do? Where Sean then says, I pushed him. And he hit him first, too. He admits that. At this point, Sean says that TMZ pap number 2, Robert Sirachi, ran across the street and hit his dad, Maurice Driz, for some reason. That didn't happen. Then Sean starts to do he goes, my dad, a 60-year-old man, he was bleeding on the forehead, blood running down, which is really interesting because there was no blood or anything on the security footage. Nor were there any marks or scratches or anything on their police photo lineups from a week after the incident. And then years later, Sean tried to say that he took these pictures of Alberto, of his vicious injuries and everything. And as you can see by these little boo-boo band-aids, it's pretty serious. Then at this point, Sean says in the deposition, nobody has the right to stand 3 feet away from you on a public property and film you. Who's going to tell him? Sean also says at this point that he started the whole thing. He says, it was me. He then follows it up with, but I was the nice guy. He just makes so much sense. And another thing, Sean said that somebody landed a punch, one of the paps from TMZ, landed a punch on his right bicep. And he said that he had a huge bruise for a long time. So the attorneys were like, okay, can we see pictures? Because clearly you guys took pictures and everything. And he said he probably took pics of his bruise after the arrests, but he never produced them. I almost forgot about this. At one point, Sean said that one of the people in his group yelled, he hit my dad. So what's interesting about that is this is Sean throwing one of his friends under the bus because he was the only one there with a father in the entire place. The reason he said that was because somebody else, the manager who tried to save my life, was assaulted. And the reason we know that it was Maurice on my body and that it was Sean attacking the manager was because Sean said to the guy, get off my dad or I'll unalive you. And then he assaulted the manager who was trying to pull Maurice Driz off of my unconscious body. Then Sean says, he did see me, Anne Green, badly injured on the ground. So he left. That's weird. I thought he was a gentleman. And then he followed that statement up with that Maurice Driz was never even there. Like, none of it makes sense. I'm so sorry if this is hard to follow. So now we're at the part of the deposition where we're talking about the fence at the Nice Guy that I jumped to go get to the TMZ PAP to try to help him and save his life. Oh, wait, sorry, that's the Great Wall of China. Hold on. This is the fence. I measured it myself, as you know, in a previous post way back, that it's exactly 6 feet tall. And as I said in my deposition and in the police statement, that there was a horizontal wooden lip on the outside. So when I was on the inside, I was able to just hop up on a little table, swing my leg over the top of the fence, put my foot on the little horizontal lip you see right there, and then boop to the ground, and then run over. Sean says, he says that the fence is 8 feet tall, which it's not. And then he says, and I quote, Anne said she jumped the wall. Then she said she walked through the Nice Guy door. She kept saying different things. I find that to be highly impossible. Next in the deposition, Sean says that he saw his Uncle Alberto being choked by somebody. That didn't happen. And he was told later Anne Green was choking Alberto. Like, you see me just choking out a 60-year-old man, just like... Anyways. This is Alex Derville and his at-the-time girlfriend, Alyssa Arnold. They're on the security footage, and she's like fighting with him, whatever, but he's just shaking her off because he's trying to help the Drizzes attack everybody else. He was aiding and abetting, and it was disgusting. And I've got a lot to say about him in the next part, but I don't have time, so this is now going to be a whole 3 parts for Sean's deposition. I'll see you in the next part. Part 37 of Don't Say Schwarzenegger. This is a continuance of the last 2 parts of Sean Drizz's 2018 deposition. So we left off on the last part where Sean was talking about his friend who he calls family, Alex Derville, who was there that night. Alex was there with his girlfriend at the time, Alyssa Arnold. They're both on the security footage. She's screaming and fighting with Alex because Alex is a part of the problem. He wasn't helping the victims. He was in it, and he was aiding the Drizzes in them in finishing the job. He was not helping the Nice Guy staff who was out there trying to pull them off of bodies and stuff. Nope. And Sean said, and I quote, Alex was the only one not involved in any way. So you know what that means. This would also be the first time that Ray Nicholson is brought up in our case. Sean mentions his name and says he was not involved in any way either. You know what that means. And by the way, I remember when I was watching the deposition videos and taking my notes and stuff years ago, and I remember sitting there and I had to email my attorneys immediately after, and I was like, yo, I just watched the deposition. There's so many witnesses that we need to subpoena. That, like, what? Like, so it was because of that I started the ball rolling where we got Alex Derville and Alyssa Arnold to be deposed. And I will cover that soon, and it's a doozy. So next in the deposition, Sean tells another lie. He perjures himself again. And he says, and I quote, Anne Green claims, and I'm very upset about that I was stomping her on the ground. End quote. I have never said that. I've always said from day one, I don't have any memory of the assault because I was hit in the back of the head when I had my back turned, and I lost consciousness before I hit the ground, and I woke up a while later, and it was after all of the defendants had fled the scene, and it was like the ambulances were there, the cops were there, so I've never had any recollection of who assaulted me. It was just all the other witnesses that testified they saw their group assaulting me. So, yeah. And then Sean starts complaining that he's never been able to tell his story to anybody. Then he admits that the Twitter posts that I found and gave to my attorneys to bring to the deposition were his from part 34, if you didn't see that, barf bag included. And then it ends for now because Sean says he has to leave the deposition because he has to go to work at a law firm called Immigration America. I love how it makes sense. And then it gets continued to like a month later. So Sean's deposition starts again like a month later. And obviously all of our attorneys have had time to kind of fact check all the stuff that he said. And one of the attorneys asks him, hey, how come Immigration America doesn't seem to have a website? Which it doesn't. Go look it up. And Sean goes, he refuses to answer why. He refuses to answer any questions about his job. Then he's asked, well, who are the attorneys that work at this law firm? And he says, I refuse to answer that. And then he starts laughing. At this point, when I was watching the deposition videos, I noticed two things. Because, I've been doing like acting modeling for 20 plus years. So you can tell when somebody's coached. You can tell when somebody is a bad or a good actor, like I see it every single day. And I noticed at this point, Sean, remember, like I've seen his tweets and all that stuff. So I know his vibe. And I noticed that he said the word father, like so many times. Like it was weird how many times he said it. And the other thing he kept saying so many times, he said, my family. He said it 32 times up until this point in the deposition. It was really weird. And at one point, my attorney said to me, I forget, maybe a few years ago, they were like, it looks like Sean is a really loyal family person. And it looks like this was just a one-time incident. And I was like, oh man, this kid is tricky. Like you can tell it sounds like he's been coached and everything, where he's just like pulling the wool over people's eyes. Next, Sean says that he was told by two people that someone ran across the street and hit his father, Maurice Driz. He says, my dad was bleeding. His entire face was covered in blood, which apparently he had makeup wipes in his pocket and cleaned it before the security footage got it. So that was miraculous. The attorneys say, okay, you have two witnesses. I mean, you had your whole group of your closest friends and family there. Let's talk to these witnesses. He says, he won't reveal their names. Also, while Sean was talking about this mystery witness who saw everything that could just blow the lid off of this case, this mystery witness saw me beating his father up. But Sean refuses to name their name, and he says it with a big smile on his face. Sean said that these two witnesses saw everything, that they took a step back and watched. Which is interesting because down the line at the civil trial, that's what Ray Nicholson said in his deposition, or before the civil trial. He said that he watched. He stood there and watched. So that was really helpful. Anyways, Sean was asked, well, did these people give a statement to Robert Shapiro, your guys' attorney, or anybody else? And he said, I refuse to answer that. Sean also refused to answer whether or not Ray was at the birthday dinner preceding this. I also want to just throw in there, Ray never, ever, ever made a police report. He never gave a statement to anybody in all the years. But he did admit later in his deposition he stood there and watched the entire thing. Makes me wonder if Ray was doing really horrific illegal things on the footage that TMZ got, and if that's the reason why everything was put away. So then next in the deposition, my attorneys had Sean Driz watch footage in slow motion, frame by frame, of the assaults from the security footage. And while he was watching Will Jolson, one of the other defendants in the civil, while he was watching him kick somebody on the ground, he said, Will Jolson would never kick somebody. So this is Alex Derville, one of the men who was part of the group who was escalating the violence in the security footage, yet somehow slipped through the criminal charges, slipped through being deposed for years, slipped from giving a police statement. He has his own law firm now. Isn't that interesting? Yep, and to quote Sean, he said, Mr. Derville did not hit anyone. He just sat back and watched. Google him, check out his law firm. Okay, so we're now at the tail end of Sean's deposition, and he's trying a new narrative. And the new narrative he actually said, well, there was only 6 of us, but there was 20 people fighting. So what he was trying to, he goes into this whole thing saying that, okay, first of all, it was just 2 people in the group, like being assaulted and stuff, which was my brother and then the other male plaintiff, because me and the other girl were off to the side, off camera. She had my body and she was checking my pulse and like having a breakdown. So who are these other dozen or so people? Sean was trying to say that it was a mystery group of people that like came out of nowhere and started throwing punches and all this stuff. So I like how that makes a lot of sense. He does that a lot. And then Sean starts laughing and joking and like schmoozing it up with my attorney. And he says, I'm not an attorney, but I'm about to be one. And he names my attorney and just starts laughing and giggling. And he's like in the best mood. And it's so eerie and so creepy. And I cried when I watched it because I just didn't understand what his mind is. Like I don't know. So then we talk about too that my attorney said, well, we asked for your text messages and phone information, like, because obviously you're supposed to subpoena that because that would tell us a lot. And Sean just ignored it. And by the way, to this day, they've ignored it. They've never had to hand it over, even though my attorneys told me we like subpoenaed it, and they say it. They said that in the deposition. They were like, we asked for it. You're supposed to give it to us. So that was really weird. Then Sean says, I don't own a computer either. Yet he works at a law firm and he's loaded. So that's really weird. And he says that he can't help with any of the phone stuff, the text info, anything, because he said Blaze Pizza paid all of my bills. So no access to phone records. And he didn't know if his phone bill was under his name or Blaze Pizza's. Like, he just doesn't know. Yet Blaze Pizza was never subpoenaed for any of that stuff either. None of that was handed over. Nobody tried to help us in our quest for justice. So I just want everybody to remember that. I'm going to have to do a whole part on exactly who, what, and where to boycott, because this should be a little more organized. But I've kind of got a lot on my plate. Okay, so that's it. I'm going to do the rest of the depositions. I might sneak some other stuff in there because my mind will just remember random stuff. But thank you guys so much for all the support. And I would love advice, more legal advice, even though it's technically not legal advice, but just everything, because you guys are following along and you know more about this than most people. So thank you so much. Part 38 of Don't Say Schwarzenegger. This part is connected to part 35, and it was unplanned until this morning. One of the men that I named in part 35 actually saw my series and reached out to me this morning to clarify some things. And I'm really, really, really glad he did. And that man is Tomer Fedita. To recap part 35, after the attempted unalivings happened at the Nice Guy, the attackers all fled in their cars and they all went back to Sean Drizz's apartment, which is like a 5-minute drive away. And that's where Tomer was, because they were roommates and friends at the time. And at that point, and this is according to deposition transcripts and videos and stuff that I have, everybody that was in there, like all the attackers from the Nice Guy, were going over talking about who hit who and blah, 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 talking about me. A lot of information was given. And when I was reading the transcripts, I was like, oh, so Tomer was named as the roommate and he's never been deposed. There's no police statement. And I was sitting there going, okay, so this guy's just hiding and running away, hiding in the shadows like everyone else. I had also said that because there was no statement on record from Tomer, who was in the at the aftermath at the apartment, all these alarm bells started going off. So this morning, Tomer contacted me himself, which I actually have a lot of respect for, because there's so many people hiding in the shadows behind fixers and high-powered attorneys and all that. But he reached out directly, which that's good. Tomer told me that, yes, he was present for the aftermath in the apartment, for the discussions, for whatever happened, all those men going there. He was not present, though, at the Nice Guy during the violence. So I said to Tomer this morning in response, I said, my opinion is you were there because of how silent you've been when it comes to helping all the victims. And this is what I found out from Tomer. Number one, the LAPD never even contacted him. And number two, he says my attorneys did reach out to talk to him and talk about possibly deposing him. He did make himself available on that phone call. He said, okay, well, here are the dates and the times that I'm available that you can depose me, absolutely. My attorneys elected not to depose him. So obviously I immediately reached out to my attorneys to fact check and say, what happened? Like, why wouldn't you depose one of the star witnesses to the immediate aftermath, especially when we have in all the depositions of other people saying, yeah, we talked about all the details, blah, blah, blah. And they said they don't know. And this information that Tomer gave me this morning actually does change my opinion, on a dime, change my opinion, especially since he's also in law and he put it in writing. He's like, no, this is what happened. And if there's one thing I love, it's receipts and people putting things in writing. But I honestly don't believe he was at the Nice Guy now. I don't believe he was part of the violence if he's so willing to cooperate years ago and so willing to talk directly to me, which a lot of people don't have the backbone to do. Another thing I'll say is he was really polite and open. I was really preparing myself for a crazy exchange, but it wasn't like that at all. So I appreciate that. I just really appreciate him reaching out directly and not having some weird slew of attorneys speaking for him, I guess. I also asked Tomer if there was anything else that he wanted to tell me, either privately or anything that maybe I should put like publicly on the social media posts, and he just had a polite response. So I hope this is a message to every person out there who was, whether they were present the night of the attempted unaliving or whether they were there in the aftermath, whether it be hours, days, weeks, months, years down the line, whether you worked with any of these people at TMZ, whatever it is. I really hope that this is a sign to you that my door is always open for an adult conversation. If you want to give me tips, if you want to give me vital information that I've missed, or if anything along those lines, my door is open, and I'll keep your name anonymous if you ask me to, 99% of the time, unless you're like, I was the one that tried to like end you, but like, other than that, I've gotten a lot of tips from so many people, from so many different, it's crazy. I won't even finish that sentence. But, yeah, I'll keep your name anonymous. I'm here to listen. I am here to get the facts straight. And I am definitely open to having adult conversations with people privately if you would like to speak to me. Oh, one last thing too. I also took off, I had hashtags with Tomer's name on both my TikToks and my IG posts with my series, and I removed his name because that's what happens when people reach out to me and go, look, this was a really terrible situation. I wasn't part of it, but this is what happened. This is what I know. I wasn't trying to run from you. I wasn't trying to, hinder your case or of justice. Just FYI. Okay, great, guys. Have a good day. Bye.
And hey, I promise to stay away from your girl, but I can't promise she gonna stay away from me. Oh. No.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.